Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I'm your host, Stacey J. Dempsey, and I am here, like always, thankfully, once again, with the other daughter and the one and only dad. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I like that
Well,
one and
here's
only. It always makes my day. One and only. One and only.
the one and only.
That's right.
So here we are. We are kicking off, and hopefully all of our listeners have started planning for their 2024. If you haven't, it's okay. But it's time to kick it into gear. So kind of with that in mind, we wanted to talk a little bit today about the influence that your business can have on the community. And obviously on this podcast, we talk often enough about goals and setting goals and systems and things like that. But sometimes that can kind of get what can get lost in those goals is really what the influence, the power of the influence that your business can have in your local community. And before we hit record today, Dad was sharing a lot of great examples. And so with that said, Dad, why don't you kind of kick us off here on what you wanted to share today?
Well, again, as you mentioned, Stacy, I think that, we talk so much about systems and we even talk, why, what is your why? Why are you in business? But one of the things I've been reflecting on lately, for our business, is quite frankly, what is the impact of our business on the community? And, I think it's a great question for our listeners who are entrepreneurs or who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur to ask themselves. And that would be, how will my business or how would this business that I'm thinking about have, how can it have an impact in my community and how will it have an impact in my community? Because I think one of the important things for us to remember, I often say the commodity of the day is influence. The more that we can influence people in our community, people that we do business with, our team, the better we're going to have, the better satisfaction we're going to have in running, a growing and successful business. And so, again, I just think it's important for us to stop sometimes and reflect on, what is my true value or impact in the community? And certainly one of those, first and foremost, is just the economic benefit that you bring the community. I mean, depending upon your business, if you're renting space or if you're buying your location, again, you are providing an economic impact, with that, by renting, by buying, there's the economic impact of, the vendors that you need to work with, whether it's again having things done to that to your location, work done. I mean, because of your business, you're utilizing other people's businesses in the course of your business, which again is providing them business, providing their employees opportunities. So the more small businesses we have out there, the more value and economic benefit it's bringing to the community. And then on top of that, you look at the jobs you're providing. What type of jobs? If it's a business that is utilizing a much younger workforce, maybe high school, college. Again, you're providing jobs to that group that are looking for part-time jobs to help you know help with whatever financial needs they may have in that season of life. And then you look at businesses like Jen, I mean, which again, a much more professional, there's got to be education, there's got to be licensing. But again, she's providing opportunities for people to come out and utilize their training and their skills and to become better. And the same goes for our business. we have, the need for a highly trained staff. So we're providing good compensation, good employee benefit packages, to attract and retain good people, because that's what we need. So again, just by the pure economic benefit that you're bringing to your community, on top of, you know, the taxes we have to pay in our communities and the things like that, in order to do business. But again, obviously our communities need a tax base in order to operate too. So, we're investing in all these things by opening up and becoming a business owner and an entrepreneur. So, I'll let Jen talk about how she feels like her business can provide impact, because she could speak to that. I have my thoughts, but she can speak to it better than me.
Yeah, well, a few different thoughts on this topic. I mean, I love that we talked about that. And I know that our listeners really love when we talk about goal setting and systems. And because again, as businesses, it's hard to figure all that out. But, in the midst of the, I guess, day-to-day craziness of being an entrepreneur, I think it's important to hold fast on to what kind of impact that you do make in your community. And when I opened my salon, for the longest time, I used to say we're the community hair salon, right? Because it was important that, I'm in the heart of this town, and it was just so important to me to really be the hairstylist of this town and just give back in different ways. But I say that to say something I keep in mind every single day is obviously I'm in the beauty industry, right? So I see a ton of different people every single day. And my goal, when I'm standing behind the chair, is to help people feel better about themselves, feel better leaving than they did when they walked into my business. And that doesn't necessarily mean looks, right? Obviously, they're going to have much better hair, of course. But, you know, my salon is such a safe place for people to come to relax, to recharge, to, be able to talk to me about what's going on in their life, vent. And so that's something I hold so dear to me, that I'm able to build relationships with my clients, especially that trust me to spend time with me and to share their lives with me. I mean, gosh, guys, I've been through, so many different finding out about, someone having cancer and shaving someone's head, um, and divorces and marriages and new babies. And I think that that is what I hold so dear to me being a hairstylist, is that I truly get to be a part of people's lives and learn different things from them. And it's something I don't take for granted. So that's one way that we, make an impact in our community. I know I've talked about this before. I think another way, being really intentional, right? Because sometimes we don't think about this. This might be the first time one of our listeners are actually thinking about this in a way of like, how can I make an impact? And so there's just so many different ways to be able to do that. One thing that has been really important to me is having this annual book bag drive in my salon and being intentional about making a difference. And so I just am very proud of that fundraiser, that because of my salon, because of my business, because of my clients, my family, our employees, we've been able to make an impact in our community directly for kids that are less fortunate, especially around the school time. And so it's just things like that that again, it can be a lot being in business and focusing on numbers and employment and hiring and firing and all the things we have to deal with. So there's these like wonderful, wonderful moments that we can really be intentional about and make a strong impact. And again, just showing our community that our business is valued. And without us being here, some of these things wouldn't have been done. So I know if it wasn't for my business, we wouldn't have been able to give 800 book bags away.
Wow.
So it's just something that is really, really special to me and kind of keeps me going in those dark times where it's like you question yourself, right? Because we all have insecurities, even when we have businesses. Like, what is the impact I'm making? Okay, now I have I have all these things. And um, so that can be a very beautiful way, being an entrepreneur, being intentional about um, making sure that you are making an impact in your community.
Well, that's great because, I just love how you describe that. And, especially, you know, I mean, I just picture, like you said, it's not about so much of looking beautiful, which, but it's how people feel, and when you come in and you have, such a great experience, in the salon, like you said, where people feel safe, they feel like they can talk, they can just get away from, the day to day, moment by moment pressures of life. Um, so they're not only walking out, with beautiful hair, but they're walking out refreshed and with a renewed confidence, in for them in their life. And so, and then that spills over in other ways. That probably spills over into their work. That spills over into the home, and those kind of things that, that influence goes even far beyond what we can see, So I think that's just, I just really been thinking a lot about, these two words. That's invest and influence. And, how can I invest back into my community through my clients? How can I invest in it in order to have more quality influence in their lives? And so, I think the key and like you just said, Jen, you're investing back into the community through, your book bag drive. I mean, again, that's investing back. And so people see that. And when people see you investing back into the community, then it's easier for them to say, I want to do business there because again, I feel like I'm being invested into. And so I want to give a return to that investment. And that's one of the things that I've often, thought about over the years in my working with my clients. I don't want them to see me just as someone who sold them something. I want them to see me as a person who it provides influence in their lives, their businesses. And the way that I attempt to do that is by, being knowledgeable and highly competent, so that when I'm having client interactions, I'm looking beyond just, you know, the transaction. I'm looking, how can I invest back into you, my client, and provide you value? Because what I found is the more value you bring, um, then the more return that comes from that. The return in terms of now all of a sudden there is something that I need to say, okay, well, here's a vulnerability in your financial plan. Here's a vulnerability in the protection in your business, and here's what I would recommend you do, to mitigate those things. Well, their response most times is going to be okay or yes. Why? Because been investing in them. I've been bringing value to them. And so now I've earned the right, to ask them to now, do something, to, you know, buy additional coverage or to invest in a certain particular investment program that I think would benefit with them. I've earned that right to do that because I've invested in them. And I think if you can think about your business from that perspective, no matter what it is, it really doesn't matter. I don't think there's any business out there, that you cannot, if you think about it, really come up with ways that you can invest back and influence people's lives. I really don't think there is. So again, but that's the key, is how do I, how are we influencing our community?
Yeah, I love that you said that. It is about building trust, number one, with your clients. And obviously, Dad, that's what you do. And I say this, when I have a first-time client inside my business, I always like to say, like, you don't have to trust me. Let me prove myself to you. But once I do, then I expect you to trust me. And so they always kind of laugh at that and like that. As you're talking, it's making me think, even the ways that we invest back into our peers in our professions too is huge. And I know that you do that, Dad, and I'll let you speak to that. But, obviously over the years of being in my industry, it's about being, giving back to the beauty schools and being involved and giving tons of free education, um, and giving hairstylists an opportunity to have a safe place to work, to grow. I'm in the middle of this huge change in my business, and even gaining the trust of your employees to say, you know what, I found a better way. I think this is a better way. This is a different way. I'm going to push the envelope, and I want you guys to trust me and come along with me. But having that influence over your peers, people that are doing the same things that you're doing, having a voice and giving back to them, and being a leader of your industry, of standing up and saying, how can I serve you? How can I help you? How can I make your journey a little bit easier? And maybe that's just sharing your story on how you got from A to B, because people love to hear that, right? So not only our clients, but obviously at the peers of the professionals that we work with, how can you make an impact into the professionals in your industry? How can you give back in that way too?
Stacy?
Yes, I'm still here. Y'all are just
I know you're,
vibing.
I know.
Y'all
I
are
just,
vibing. I'm just going along for the vibe ride.
okay.
This
All
is
right.
just me.
Just,
This is me vibing over here.
okay.
Riding the dad and daughter train.
There you go. I like it. Well, and I think, the other aspect of this, I think it would be helpful for our listeners is that, this also, and we've talked about this before, the importance of your culture. And, this is something that should really permeate through your culture, meaning that, and Jen, you spoke to it, is, not only should I be, as the entrepreneur, should I be investing and influencing my community, by how we do business and how we interact with our customers, our clients, but also it should be the same for how we, how we work with our team. Asking ourselves, how am I investing and influencing the people on my team? Because if I'm doing that, and and they're seeing that that is part of the culture, then that will also start to come through them to the clients. And that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for that to be a cultural norm, not just something that comes from the person at the top, but flows all the way down. And when your customers and your clients see that everybody on the team is looking for ways to invest back in them and influence their lives in a positive way, then everything, starts to flow better. I mean, again, because now, your clients are going to be more, and customers are going to be far more likely to refer people to you, or to say, hey, if you're in the food business, oh, you got to go check this place out. The atmosphere is great. It's relaxing. The service is great. The food's good. The whole thing. So, it has to flow through your people for it to ultimately impact the community to the extent your business can truly have that impact. So, so again, it has to flow down through your people, and in your culture.
Well, I got something to say. Can I talk now a
Well,
little
that's why
bit?
I gave you like a nanosecond a minute ago, and you didn't take it. So
You almost got skipped again.
that's
I
right.
Well, I wanted to throw in there, I concur with everything you guys have said. But yeah, obviously I agree with everything that you guys said. And to your point, Dad, I know there's things here in our office now that being for years being led by example for especially around the holidays, you and Dave always wanted to try to make an impact in the community to some regards. And now that kind of the staff now kind of carries that out nowadays where obviously you and Dave are still contributing, but now we have teammates that kind of take the ball and run with organizing getting gifts for a family and adopting children to get gifts for and all of that, when you talk about culture, all of that now happens without the prompting of the top. And that comes from I just give this example because originally it was the top organizing and kind of making decisions, but now it's more of an internal, this is just what we do this time of year.
Right.
Like there's no, hey, do you guys want to buy it? This is just what we do this time of year. And thankfully one of our teammates just takes it over, takes the ball, organizes it, sends the emails, collects the money, really does everything from start to finish as far as organizing and delegating and making sure that things arrive on time. But it's just now a part of what we do. And there's several things throughout the year where something like that happens because it's just what we do. So when you talk about it being a part of the culture, I just felt like that was probably, at least here in our office, that's kind of our example that, this time of year we do X, Y, and Z. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so, I think that for a lot of businesses that want to kind of have that same model, like you said, Dad, taking it from the top, doing it by example, and a lot of us in the office are part of different organizations when it comes to helping the community. Of course, I'm a part of Meals on Wheels. But a lot of the things that Dad and Jennifer have talked about today, in my mind, when you guys are talking, I kind of see like the domino effect. You push one domino and a whole chain of reactions start to happen. And so in my world, when it's Meals on Wheels, yes, we have a volunteer that goes ahead and delivers a meal, but that's not the only impact. A lot of times, especially in the nonprofit world, we talk about the financial impact that a nonprofit can have on taxpayers, on, tax benefits to businesses, and all of that is important. But the domino effect that really happens, the impact that actually happens is that we have volunteers that are scheduling out and blocking out time, to make sure that they deliver this meal, and not just deliver this meal, but to have a welfare check. They see someone that is most of the time they don't see anyone else that day. So they're getting, are you okay? Is there anything else you need? And not only does that client who's receiving that meal get a hot meal, but a lot of times that's the only nutrition that they're getting that day. But their nutrition allows them to stay in the house, which then the domino effect is that there's family members that are thankful that that their loved one is being checked on, because maybe they physically can't do that every day. Maybe they live far away. I can't tell you how many, especially this time of year, the families that write us emails and letters saying it makes me, I rest a little bit easier at night. I knowing that my mom's being checked on, because I live 2 states away and I can only come visit, a few times a month. I can't be there every single day. And mom gets to stay in her house, and mom is so much happier because I don't have to put her in a nursing home. So it's all of these domino effects that, yes, there's a financial aspect to that. but there's a whole domino effect that it's all of these additional lives that are being impacted, you know, within our community. And it's really, it's a, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, it can be a real motivator, you know, when your organization, nonprofit or for profit, is kind of hitting a bump in the road. You know, and from my perspective, sometimes being on the board, when you're filtering through decision making, it's like, all right, well, we got to remember why we're doing this. So we're doing it for this effect in the community, and we have to filter our decisions through that feeling sometimes. And sometimes that means you got to make more difficult decisions. But if there's a greater good involved, I think that's where the real motivation can come from, to keep on doing what you're doing, because you know you're having that domino effect on a lot of people's lives. And so yeah, that's what I have to say today.
Well, and yeah, I mean, there's nothing, you know, in the nonprofit world, and like you said, with like the organization like Meals on Wheels, you know, the impact that you know that these nonprofits have, you know, in the community. I mean, that's why obviously in most areas, United Way and places like that will, you know, provide funding. I mean, those are just critical things for communities, you know, to help again make sure that everybody is cared for in some way, shape, or form. Um, and so, but the nonprofit world is so important. But again, I mean, I just think that as we started this podcast, you know, I would just encourage everybody as we go into 2024. Yes, think about your goals and make sure you have them written down. Make sure you have your processes thought through on how you're going to, what you need to do every day to reach those goals. Because remember, you know, we don't rise to our goals, we fall to our system, you know, so we can have the biggest goals in the world. But if we don't have a good system to get us there, we're only going to produce what our system will allow. And so I would just encourage everybody to add to that now. What, you know, am I having, you know, an influence in my community through my business? If I am, how can I enhance that? If I'm not, or at least not really thought about it, you know, what would be a way I could influence more in my community with my business? And I think that, again, you start to really feel the power of entrepreneurship when you bring that into the equation.
Boom. Well said, Dad.
Thank you.
Influence is very yes, influence is, I think a lot of times influence is also what draws people to us, and it allows them to trust us on many different levels, especially when we're doing business. That when they see that you're spending your time and effort to have a positive influence, even if it doesn't directly affect them, it's something that I feel at least a lot of people that we seem to do business with are like, yeah, that's the person I want to have around me, because I can see that they're doing their best to have a positive influence, even if I'm not necessarily a part of that equation. And that can be what it's all about. So, well, we hope that you guys have enjoyed this topic, and we hope that you guys are investing and influencing and looking over those goals and getting ready to get to it. So until we see you guys, be kind to each other and be kind to yourself. Bye-bye.